I'll give you an even darker scenario if you really want to go down this path.
Okay, yeah.
Imagine now you have a brokerage. That brokerage has 40, 50% market share nationally. That brokerage then can begin to start to reduce your commission, your splits, right? Because let's say, remember, you get
Right.
90-10 at one point in time. Well, next year it's 85-15. Eventually you get down to 70-30. Good luck telling your clients that, by the way, their property is now not visible by half the country. That is the path and plan that is currently being mapped out. And I want to be unbelievably clear about this. I did not use a brokerage name.
You did not.
I am simply saying, because it's not one, there
Right.
are several that
Right.
are in this path.
Cheers to champagne and closings. Hey everyone, welcome back to our second episode of Champagne and Closings. And this time I have the pleasure of having Lance Pendleton, who is one of our family's very longtime friends, well, the family for 70 years, which is a little scary, Lance. I really don't want to admit that. Okay. Just saying. I don't even think our dads do. And I just wanted to thank you like so much for everything you've already done, the information, helping my agents at my office, and just kind of like walk through what's the upset in the market lately and how Compass has really come in to be a major upset and not necessarily in a good way. Some things for them, they may think that they are, but I figured we could just start with everything about their model and what they do. And I guess for someone like me and being on the board and being a director at the state level is when you now have to deal with, there's, for example, 340,000 agents when there really aren't 340,000 agents. So I figured we could ask, get a little background from you and what you do and your start, where I first realized you were even in real estate was at William Pitt Sotheby's.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's fantastic to get a chance to sit and chat with you. And, I work with thousands of agents across the country, and very rarely do I get the opportunity to talk to agents at your caliber and level. So it's really actually a pleasure to have the chance to sit down and chat. Look, I came into real estate accidentally. Everything I have in my life is because of somebody else. And I like to think that nothing was by my own great genius of invention, but I've had an interesting career and ride going through the world. I mean, I started at Apple many, many years ago as an educator for Apple, and then I moved into real estate. I actually started at William Pitt Sotheby's as their director of learning and development, worked my way up through them until I was the chief innovation officer for them. And then I was recruited into Compass. And Compass, I was the national head of agent development. And when I started there was about 6,000 agents. When I left, there was 32,000 agents. So I helped oversee the building, the development of all of their learning and development programs and all of the different elements of that, and worked with Robert and the executive team and everybody else. And I think the interesting thing is for the point of conversation, you have to look at it as sort of two camps, not just Compass versus a Zillow type thing, because
Mm-hmm.
there's two philosophical approaches that are happening in the country right now, and they're two very diametrically opposed philosophical approaches. So it's best to think about it like this. There are brokerages out there currently that desperately want to privatize listings, and they desperately want to make sure that information and data is closed off, that they are the only people that control it, that they can monetize that, and they don't really care what's in the best interest of a consumer, and they don't really care what's in the best interest of the agents. Of course, they'll tell you that they do, but they don't. And then you've got brokerages out there that are hyper focused on, again, creating stronger visibility, stronger opportunity, more transparency to consumer, more transparency and availability to agents. And I think that that's really that's the big debate currently happening,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. Yeah, I think they're, having this off market where people really think it's going into a, a portal with 340,000 agents is very, very misleading. And then there is that whole transparency thing where they're not being transparent. And I think it's frustrating for people outside looking in because it kind of makes it look like, oh, we just bought all these agents, we just bought all these companies, and they really didn't. I mean, the majority of the people in that 340,000 count are affiliates. So now they're, what we've seen where a Coldwell Banker office in Manhattan folded, quote unquote, into the Compass brand because it's either join them, which is kind of what my argument has been. It's either they're forcing you to join them or get out. It's one way or the other. And people don't realize that. People are always saying like, oh, Sotheby's will always be Sotheby's. No, not so quick. Not so quick. Once all the affiliates have to renew their contracts, because right now in my market, they're buying up things. One Sotheby bought Callaway Henderson. There's rumors of them buying up another brokerage, about 100 agents here locally in New Hope. Won't say the name yet in case, who knows what's going to happen until it happens. And it's just one of those things where, okay, but what are they doing for the consumer? They're really not. It's one thing to try an off market and see if it works, but then let's go to the marketplace so that the consumer can actually get the highest and best for their property.
Yeah. And look, to be completely clear, I love the concept of private exclusive. The thing is, it's not new. And I think, the old saying of the greatest trick the devil ever played on mankind was convincing mankind that he didn't exist,
Right.
is part of what's happening here. And the reality that we live in now is we've always been able to list something privately. We've
Right.
always
Correct.
been able
Right.
to do that, right? So this isn't a new concept. What we're dealing with are companies that have identified that the only profit model that works, because it's not brokerage, right, is to be able to own the data. And if you own the data, if you control the data, you can monetize the data. And consumers don't recognize that that is a slow, methodical process that with each passing month, each passing year, more of that access gets stripped away from consumers. Now,
Right. Right.
Caryn, I am all in favor of a full reform of NAR and a full reform of clear cooperation. And for those listening, clear cooperation needs to be reformed. There's lots of opportunities, but you don't need to pull the pin on the grenade and chuck it in the room and walk away. Like there's no reason to blow something up that is working relatively well. And I'm in favor of capitalism. I think all of these companies should have an opportunity to do that. But when you start doing things behind the scenes that are really not in the best interest, while out in front of the scene saying, we're doing this for consumer choice. We're doing this because we love consumers. We're doing this because we love the agents. Remember, Caryn, I mean, you know this probably way better than I do. If you look at the history of real estate was very much weighted to the brokerages. Brokerages
Hmm.
had all the control. You had to physically go to a brick and mortar place in town. There'd be someone at a desk that would greet you. That was an agent. You'd say, I'm looking for X. They'd go pull a big binder off the shelf, and you'd start flipping through these listings in this binder that the brokerage had to be able to see what was available. And, all of that was the way it was done. And a great split for an agent was 50-50.
Right. Right. And now
Right. That was
look,
a
right.
great split. And then what happened was with the invention of the World Wide Web, with email, with visibility in social media and things like that, the agents started slowly over time to gain more control and more power over the business itself. So now as agents gain more control and more power over the business, what ends up happening is brokerages become less and less necessary. So they have to find ways to make themselves necessary. Because again, look, let's be super clear. No consumer works with a brokerage. They work with an agent, right? At the end of the
Hmm.
day, the last NAR study I saw was that only 3% of consumers care what brand or brokerage the agent is with. 3%, right?
And I
So
have found that too. Right.
you're the product, you're the commodity.
Right.
So in this arc of what happens as the power dynamic shifts to the agents, the next most interesting thing is brokerages have no place left to go except for, well, where are the other places that we can make money? And those are attaches, mortgage, title, escrow. That's where the money really comes from. There's no money in brokerage.
Right. It's definitely tight for sure.
Go back now exactly 6, 7 months ago, and you can mark the exact time period in which the dynamic, the power dynamic, started to shift away from agents. Now it's shifting back to the brokerages again because they discovered that if we own the data, if we control the data, then guess what? We now can control the agents because if I have the data, if I have the consumer, and if I have the information, agent, where are you going to go? Go ahead, leave me. You won't be able to see any of the listings that we have. Your clients won't be able to see the listings that we have, right? So that is how they're shifting the power dynamic back to the brokerage currently.
And it's kind of similar, right? Because that's what I've been arguing with people is, you know, people who are so happy to see Zillow go and, oh, Zillow this, Zillow that. Okay, but you're doing the exact same thing.
Exactly.
It's just now with a different company. You're collecting all the data. It's not about the consumer. I feel that so many of these back office things and these everything that you're talking about, you really do lose. It's more about the systems. It's not about one-on-one relationships with a client. Even just meeting somebody and saying, nope, just text me. And whenever you want to go see the property, or, obviously we all are into tech. I'm hugely into tech, but I think that really people have lost sight of what's happening. And they're really, like I like to refer to it before, it was, you drank the red Kool-Aid with Keller Williams, you drink the blue Kool-Aid with Sotheby's, and now you're drinking the Compass Kool-Aid.
The black Kool-Aid.
The black Kool-Aid, yeah. And now it's just like, okay, what is happening in this industry? Because no one is seeing that they're being forced to go to Compass because they're making it as if they have all the agents, they have all the off markets, they have everything. And now you're left to, well, okay, so go to Compass. It happens. Go to Compass, see how that works out for you. At least where we are too, we're in a really niche market where, we're in town. It's kind of like, being in Larchmont, right? Where you're walking in town, everyone knows you. Everyone knew your parents. It's kind of the same here. You want it, you've got to be ingrained. I tell people all the time, you have to go out and you have to be seen. You have to go out, talk to people, even the little touches that you even talked about with an open house, the night before an open house and sending the family out to dinner. Do you have any idea how crazy people thought that idea was? And I was like, okay, but I send flowers after every single listing appointment saying, if my listing appointment's at 1, I have at 4:00, they get flowers delivered saying, thank you for the opportunity, your time. It was lovely meeting you. Whether I get the listing or not is irrelevant. They'll remember that I sent that. So if something goes wrong or they weren't necessarily happy, I should have used Caryn or someone from her office.
Yeah, you bring up a fantastic point too, because the way that the business is structured and set up currently is really kind of ass backwards. People talk all the time about sales. My sales, the last year's sales. I always love looking at, and love is, I'm being facetious. It makes me nuts. Looking at LinkedIn and all these social media sites right around March, because every March everybody goes on there and it's like, I'm the Bronze Star winner of X, Y, and Z and the president's circle of X. And then you look at the comments below. So well deserved. Couldn't be done by a better they're all agents. It's literally agents just commenting on other agent stuff. It's ridiculous. And, I look at a lot of what happens currently within the markets that we operate in. And, if you take last year, and don't hold me to this, I might be off by a few points. Last year, it was about 87% of all real estate transacted in the United States of America was transacted by 10% of the licensed agents. 87% of all real estate in this country was done by only 10% or less. And then if you dig into the actual volume, it's about 4%, of the bulk of that. It's wild. Yet we have 1.5 million licensed agents. Yeah. And so how does any consumer begin to understand who the right people are, who the right person is, right? When you're living in this massive bubble of disinformation and all these brokerages are trying to compete to keep their agents relevant. So what's the value proposition they offer an agent? Well, come to us. We can show how the 3-stage marketing plan. But there's no marketing involved in your 3-stage marketing plan, right? It's just a
No.
rollout strategy, and all you're doing is privatizing the listing, shopping it to double end it within your own brokerage, making sure that the consumer thinks that that's actually something that's being done in their best interest, then moving it into a status, which is, hey, you've got 3 days to put it on, right? So we're going to create some buzz around it, and then it goes on the market. Well, my whole thing is, if the process works so darn well, then wouldn't everything sell in private? Nothing would ever make it to the
Right.
public,
Right.
but clearly it does. So all of this becomes just sort of more nonsensical shenanigans, that it's all part of the game that gets played. And unfortunately, the people that pay are the 10% of agents that are actually doing the business,
Right.
and consumers. That's who suffers the most.
Yeah, and because I don't think anyone realizes that you're not getting the exposure, right? And like you, I've always been a fan of off markets for certain properties. You have a celebrity, you have someone who's a big CEO, just doesn't want to know, doesn't want anyone knowing their business. But really, for the 99% of other ones, you're not getting. It was interesting. I was with an agent last night in New York, and she was telling the story about how she was getting ready to list a property, and the neighbor wanted to put in an offer, wanted to buy it. So let's say the price was 665 they were going to list it for. And the next door neighbor said, "I'll buy it for 660, all cash, no inspections, blah blah blah." Well, the agent was able to say to the seller, "Let's see what happens, but let's get it on the market." Well, it went for 760, $100,000 more. They literally went, and what the agent said to the client was, "I'm telling you, you're leaving money on the table because the other one sold with a 7 in front of it. You're going to get bid up." And so, like you had said once before, if it goes into that private, off market exclusive, you might have one or two people looking at it, not 340,000.
And what I find most, I think, appalling about the entire thing is that the agents don't know what they don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your jobs are incredibly difficult. If you think about the agent role, there is no safety net. You don't have a 401k. There's no
Right.
retirement plan. There's no consistent paycheck. There's no health care. There's no, like, if I describe that as a job description to some kid coming out of college, I'm like, is this something you want to do? Which one of them is going to go, oh yeah, hell yes, let me jump in on that, right? Like,
Right.
it's not, it's not a real easy job by any means. Then you're dealing with people at the third most stressful time of a human being's life, right behind death and job loss, with the single largest financial asset most people own. And your job is to shepherd them through that process, to help them better understand, how do we de-stress this? How do we give you the right information? How do we get you positioned correctly? How do we help navigate this with all of the things that are going to come up during this? Because it's inevitable, right?
Right. Right.
And all of that, by the way, you're putting your own money up out front with no actual guarantee that you're going to recoup that, to have it staged, to have it photographed, to have it videoed, to have all of these things. You're just paying money with no guarantee whatsoever that that's going to come back. You're taking that risk.
Right.
Again,
Yeah.
what person's
Right.
raising their hand and going, yeah, that's a great business model for me, right? It takes a very unique entrepreneur and an incredibly skilled human being to be able to actually do that, stay with that, and keep themselves somewhat sane in that process.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Right. And in that, the only chance that you have is, what support do I have for this really business that I'm putting out there, right? For this world that I've created for myself. Well, and then you have a brokerage who says, well, come to us because here's how we're going to make that easier for you. Well, technology is a great example of that. Great. Fine. You've got technology for me. Wonderful. I can tell you on the back end, I've been behind a bunch of these brokerages. Less than 25% of all agents in any brokerage are using their technology.
Absolutely.
If it's not the part where they have to actually upload the check to get money, they're not using most of what's happening there. But what really is appalling is that when you look at everything I just described about what you have to go through as an agent, If the same people that are there supposed to be supporting you are basically more focused on how they can enrich themselves and make themselves more profitable at your expense, then how is that real? And agents don't know that. You're so busy helping people, engaging with people, being out, doing your marketing, doing your connections, working with your actual clients, dealing with negotiations, dealing with all the different things that come in during the course of the day.
Right.
You're not looking at what's happening behind the curtain at Oz. You don't have time to do what a lot of us, I have the luxury of reading a lot of things and studying things and listening to really people way smarter than I am, which isn't hard to find these days, but a lot
It's
of people way smarter than I am, right? To understand the industry and all of these different aspects. But I also talk
yeah.
to a lot of consumers.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I don't think people it's so true. They don't really understand we're, 1099, person, and you have to go out and you've got to get your business. I moved to New Hope 24 almost 24 years ago. I knew no one. Just knew no one. I think having a great work ethic, from when I was a little kid and I used to go into my dad's office in New York. I was 7 years old and I thought that was a big deal filing, I got to help them and stuff like that. But, we just had a recent thing where an agent was like, "You're not branding for me." I'm like, "What? What do you mean I'm not branding for you?" "Well, logo to this." I said, "Well, first, you never even asked that, but that's your job. That's not my job. Come up with a logo. You want me to design a logo? I can, but hire a company that you're going to work with to come up with the logo that you love, that resonates with you." And it's kind of along the whole thing with the technology. You have to be able to go and use the technology. I realize that so many agents, they just are, I'm helping a friend who's an interior designer right now, and I don't understand how, all right, so just get on Canva. It's not really that hard.
Yeah.
But they don't. They freeze up. So I do it for all my agents. I'm like, "Here you go. Here it is. Now you can brand it yourself." I do the reels, I just share everything, but you do what you need to do. When I was at any of my other firms before, when I was at Sotheby's, no one gave us anything to say, "Here, go out and, use these videos. We have a Monday thing, a Wednesday thing." No, you had to come up with it on your own. So yeah, I agree. The technology is one aspect of it, but it isn't really real estate.
No. And
Relationships are.
you think about the relationship portion, and this is why I've so enjoyed talking to you and working with your team, because it's easy for us to say it's a relationship business. Anyone can say that, but the truth of the matter is, if you look at how the business is structured for us as agents, it's not built on relationships. And
Right.
this is one of my favorite things. Think about how many years you've been in this business, and then ask yourself this: how many agent panels have you attended over the X number of years that you've been in business? Agent panel, agent sitting on stage with a microphone talking about how they built their business, sales meeting, agents telling you how many do you think agent panels have you been in attendance in your time in real estate?
Ooh, quite a few, especially with all the
Did
global networking that's happening.
right?
Yeah.
So all of us, right? Anyone listening to this podcast, ask yourself the same question. Okay, now next question. You ready? How many consumer panels have you attended? I'll wait.
Exactly right. None.
None. And
Right.
yet, what is our job? We work with consumers. We work with people. Yet you don't find it
Right.
weird.
Right.
At no point does this industry ever want you talking to consumers or learning from them,
I never actually thought about that. You're 100% correct.
because that's the secret. That's the
Right.
thing. Because if you start to understand what consumers actually want and need, guess what you actually don't need? Them. All the
Exactly.
coaching, all the, the brokerages, NAR, all of that, it's all built and designed to protect itself.
Yes, very true. It's kind of like when the whole NAR thing was happening. I was like, "Why isn't anybody subpoenaing me?" Like I literally had all of my contracts, because I just kept putting them in storage, for 20 plus years. And so why wasn't I asked to, "Caryn, get your contract out from 15 years ago, 12 years ago, 8 years ago, ones that had double sides? Did you take 6%? No, I took 3%. I took 3.5%." Or, okay, I'm helping this one out. No, I'll do it for 2%, because they were having financial, whatever it was. I was never called to do that. Neither was anybody else. They settled.
No. They did. And the reason they settled is because they knew where they were wrong.
Yeah,
Because they
right.
knew that what happened was they taught and trained agents to say 6%.
Right.
That was the training that every agent received. If you go to any brokerage, and that's what they subpoenaed, was all the records of the training documentations and things like that. And that's what came out was you've been telling agents to say, it's not, the agents had nothing to do with it.
Right.
The agents
No.
are the ones that got the short end of the stick because why? You're out in front. Agent commission it's not agent commission. That's the way the industry was designed and built. And that's what most
Right.
consumers don't understand.
No, they really don't. It was actually a really big challenge too in the beginning when that whole NAR thing happened, because then there were quite a few people that were like, well, I don't have to pay the broker, the buyer broker. That's not how it works. And I would then go into this whole thing about how many agents we have here in Bucks County, how many are over the bridge that are dually licensed in Hunterdon County, Mercer County, down by Camden to come into Philadelphia. You've now closed out all of those agents who were going to bring the buyer if you're not going to pay.
Well, you and I will actually have a difference of opinion on this one
Okay, all right.
because
But I like this.
I come at it from a slightly different angle. So the first thing to understand was prior to the NAR settlement, they never had to pay.
Right.
They never had to pay. That's
And
the most
also,
important thing that people forget.
and also years and years ago, there were no buyer agents.
Right. Right.
Everyone worked for the seller.
Right. And then clear cooperation came in and they
Right.
realized no. Right. So the way that I always explained it was I would tell people like, look, if you're going to be, this is how I describe agency, right? And why someone having their own representation is important. If you're being sued by somebody, would you hire the attorney representing the person that's suing you to represent you as well? No,
100%. Right.
never.
100%. Right.
Yet in real estate, that's exactly what was happening. That's what people would do. So this is where I will disagree with you slightly. I think buyer agent compensation, it's how we explain it to people. Because what I always try and have people focus on is I want my sellers to recognize that I work exclusively for you. I am the fiduciary. I have fiduciary responsibility to you. The first thing is that we as agents for too many years prior to the NAR settlement had been fighting for someone else's money. That was the first big thing that came up in that. Because if I'm sitting at a kitchen table and I'm talking about compensation, I'm 5%, 6%. That's not all coming to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh, well, we want to do
Correct.
it for less. I'm literally debating and arguing for someone else's income. So right
Right.
by default,
Right.
that's a problem to me. The
Right.
second thing is the way that I've explained it to people, and this was before this whole NAR settlement happened, is very straightforward. I explained to the seller, look, my fee is 3%, whatever that is in your area, whatever you charge, right? But my fee is 3%. Once we finalize my fee, I'm going to explain the three options that you have on the buyer side. But first, what questions do you have, if any, about my fee? Why? Because it's for the work that I'm doing, what I do, how I do it, all the things that are involved in it. We shouldn't be discussing anything else until we have finished this part first.
And I agree with that. Totally. Right.
So right off the bat, I'm not violating anything because I'm separating two very important things here.
Mm-hmm.
The second part then is once we have a conversation, we finalize my fee, great. Then I'll explain, well, here are the three options you have on the buyer side. You can offer a percentage, you can offer a flat dollar amount, or you can offer nothing. Those are your three choices. But before you decide anything, there's one important thing to know. All buyer agent compensation is fully negotiable up to the point of an accepted offer, which means you are under no responsibility to commit in advance to anything until you've seen an offer. And what I mean by that is that doesn't mean we're not going to explain the importance of buyer agent compensation. What I say is when the buyer's agent calls and says, I want to go show 123 Main Street, Lance, what are they offering? My answer is always going to be the same. My sellers fully understand the value of buyer agent compensation. They're super excited to do a deal. Whatever you have in your agreement, send it over with the offer. We're looking at everything and we're looking forward to working with you.
And I think I actually like that. I think that, sometimes even, in the heat of the NAR settlement, I would actually say to some agents, this is why we have this problem. Because if they were a buyer agent beating my seller up and then my seller's paying them to beat them up in reality. So, and I explained that to a couple of agents. I said, you're the problem.
That's right.
And sometimes I've even said to an agent, why am I and my seller the ones lowering a price or lowering my commission? Why aren't you? Like, so sometimes I've said to an agent, I've done my share. You want the deal to close? Cough up $2,000. It's, when you're talking about a $30,000 commission, what's a couple grand, right? Just get the deal done, close it. But right.
And
So I do agree with both with both things.
yeah,
I like to explain to them that if this is what you want to do, you're blocking out this many people. But I really actually like your thought of let's talk about this. I wish you could negotiate it after, when you're in the middle of the deal and the seller's not being nice or the buyer's not being nice, nor is the buyer agent. But I do like how you explain it because I do think it's important, first of all, for the seller to really understand that and do it separately from my commissions, the listing side. Just because I just think it's tough. I would never want to pay a buyer agent if they're the ones beating me up either. And I'm in the business. I'm like paying
right.
you to be mean and
To be a jackass? Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
To be a
and
jerk and like rake me over the coals. I don't want to pay you now.
Caryn, how many agents on the other side of the deal have you worked with where you've pretty much carried the deal because they didn't know what they were doing? They were unqualified and they shouldn't have been there to begin with.
All the time. All the time.
Why
Don't
are we
do the
paying
contract
them?
right. Right. Can't even do the contract right.
Right.
Yep.
So,
I agree.
and I would actually say the benefit to the new world system and the way that I sort of explained it is that buyer agency compensation is fully negotiable until your clients have accepted an offer.
Right.
So if your property's on for 2.2 million and they submit an offer of 1.8 and 3.0 for the buyer's agent, why would I accept that? Someone
right.
submits 2.5 and 2.1. Okay, now we're talking, right?
Right.
Which one of these? So it's all a fluid process, right? And so I think that this conceptually is, again, brokerages don't want to have these conversations. They want to still hold on to that idea that you have to be getting the most possible out of this. And remember, when you have these brokerages that are privatizing listings and they're double ending deals on the inside, they're even more incentivized to keep these things as high as possible because it's just
Right.
more revenue to the bottom line.
Yeah, to their bottom line. Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. And that's why there's also a lot of the buying up these other brokerages now because those are their feeder markets that they want to do. And they want to keep it all under one umbrella so that people actually get that. So yeah, I think the market that we're going to see is right now is in an upheaval, but as you said, it's just staying the course and selling yourself as the agent and then thoroughly explaining this off market, which you and we both feel the same way. There are certain houses that I do agree should be on it because, there's celebrities. They don't want everybody in their home. And it is easier to control that. And hopefully that you can sell it. But it's interesting too, because when you're talking about all this transparency with the NAR, there's no transparency and there's actually violations of the code of ethics.
Yeah, 100%.
That nobody is even mentioning, honesty that's one of the codes that you have to be, honest in your advertising, and they're not being honest. And they're really making consumers think, oh my God, they got 340,000 agents now. I'm going to put my property in the offer. I'm going to get the highest dollar amount. No, you're not. but okay. And of course, we're not saying it never happens. No one's saying that. But the reality is it only benefits Compass.
Yeah. And you're spot on. It's you and I, when we got licensed in this business, took our oath to what? Fiduciary duty. It is our
Correct.
responsibility to
Right.
protect fiduciary. And what is fiduciary duty? It means that I need to place you as the consumer's personal and financial best interest above mine.
And above
That's what that
everything
means.
else.
And above everything
Right.
else, that's what that is. You
Right.
tell me how me privatizing your listing in order to internalize it and double end it within a brokerage
Right.
is me doing my fiduciary duty to you. That's not how this works.
No. And it's just, to me, it's just astounding how people don't realize that.
Yeah.
I seem to always have the clients that, they find the comb in the shower and the photos that we didn't see, right? Where
Yeah.
how many other photos you're like, okay, the woman is in the shower cleaning it. Right? Like, how did my client find the comb? So it's just astounding to me how that. I mean, it was interesting. Yesterday, I was at a huge round table, and we were talking about painting and staging and getting a house ready, and someone actually had all virtual photos up, but not one photo mentioned it was a virtual photo. So I was like, wow, that looks so nice. Oh my God, what do you mean it hasn't sold? Oh, well, and then I said, well, all right, who did the staging? Oh, that's virtual. I said, well, first of all, you have it virtually staged, but you don't have it mentioned that it's virtually staged. And here we go again with this, you're not being true to the consumer. It's false advertising. So even when these stats come out that, the off-market exclusives sell for 4.6% higher than they would in the open market, people don't realize, well, yeah, they've overpriced them.
Right.
So, and then you only have that small group bidding on them. So, and that's only a small percentage of them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, huge side shout out to Notable, who has a phenomenal product that allows consumers to be able to to make capital improvements to the property well
Right.
in advance in order to then not have to come out of pocket for all of those. Because to your point, digital staging is great, right? Until they show up. And when you have something that looks beautiful and then they get there and it smells like cat pee and sadness,
Right.
like that's a very different experience than someone having,
Exactly.
right? Like, and you're just sort of like, okay, well, I need to make sure that this product that again is this person's most important thing in their life
Right.
is being presented the right way. And so, I've seen some phenomenal things done with a lot of the staging work, that great agents like yourself have done over the years. And it's just really important to watch what that really does to help transform the property and people's perception of. And again, there's no doubt that a well-staged home, that a home that's been had some solid capital improvements to it, sells for more. There's
For
no
more
doubt.
and faster. Right.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
100%.
And we do that all the time. Even in Philadelphia, when you're going to see 30 apartments, there's a development in Philadelphia, there's 3 buildings, and they're all the exact same. So when you see one that's staged, you're like, wow, oh my God. And then you get there, you're like, why are we here? Because the consumer forgets, like, I didn't want to come see this. I'm like, well, you did, but here are the photos online. They're all virtually staged. So, it's not good.
And we all know how much this generation loves putting in the work of redoing things and finding a fixer-upper. Like nobody
Filters, right? We're
yeah,
the land of the filters today.
Nobody wants to, buy a house anymore that needs a ton of work. That's not, it's not a real thing.
Yeah, yesterday, the guy it was actually pretty funny. It was gorgeous. Virtual of this awful deck out back, right? But it was like a dusk shot, and they added all this lighting, and
That's
I was
so
like,
romantic.
oh, that's amazing. And then when the next photo was what it really looked like, I was like, okay, well, that's a problem.
I think you just described every online dating experience that I had back in the day of, oh, that's
Exactly.
nice. That was your high school graduation photo. You're 57 now, and that was probably needed to
It's
be
still the
updated, but
same.
yeah.
Yeah, it's still the same. Still the same. When I tell like all my girlfriends, go to the last photo.
Yeah.
And here's this one. Wow. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's what they look
Yeah,
like
it's
right
yeah.
now. That's last. Like I
That's first thing in the morning.
right. Exactly. Or it's the one that's of now, not when they graduated college.
Right. Yep. Oh,
Right.
it's so
Yeah.
funny.
So, yeah, so I think that, right now it's all about protecting the consumer, protecting, honestly, the integrity of the business. I feel as if the business and this entire real estate industry, there's really there's no one standing up and saying, guys, everyone needs to listen up because this is what we got our license for. It wasn't to be a factory of 300 transactions. Like when someone says to me, well, how many transactions did you do last year? I'm like, how many did you do? They're like, well, I did 300. I'm like, well, I don't want to do 300. Like, why don't you want to do 300? Because I don't. Their price point might be 100 to 200,000. I'm not a factory of let me get the listing and then put it out there and then let my entire team, and I have no idea except that there's more money in the bank if it sells, versus really nurturing whether it's, the $10 million client or the, $200,000 one that really needs my assistance. People always call me, oh, Caryn, my daughter, my niece, my son-in-law. I'm like, of course I'm going to help them. And actually, I take more pride in that, right? Because you're teaching them, it's their first home, whether it's a condo in Philly. And I just feel like this entire industry is getting ready to blow because it is all about, like you said, gathering data, not gathering what's best for the client, the consumer, and eventually that data is worth something to a bigger company.
It's worth a lot. I mean, think about what's involved in a transaction. You have a consumer, if you're a brokerage, you have a consumer's all their personal information. You've probably got a
Mhm.
lot of the banking and mortgage and title and escrow information wrapped up in there as well. You've got all of the online searching they're doing, what they're looking at, where they're looking at, how long they're looking at it for, what picture they click on, how often they click on it, how many times did they visit that. You're looking at from the process of the transaction, where did they move? So think about all the geographic information. How old are
Right.
they? All of this information is incredibly valuable because it's how you learn to program systems. And I mean, again, look at how Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all of these, TikTok, it's all based on algorithms, but the
Mhm.
algorithm has to learn from data. So when you start giving people this much information and this much data,
Right.
it allows them to actually privatize even more, corner the market even more, and feed more to people, right, to actually influence their decisions and choices. And if anybody listening to this doesn't think that that's actually what's happening, you are sadly mistaken,
I
because
know.
that is the goal and that is the game. These brokerages want to replace Zillow, and what they're saying is, look, Zillow bad because Zillow takes your information, right, and they use that to make money off of that.
Right.
Well, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
It's the exact same thing. You're
Exact same
literally
thing.
replacing the thing that you're calling evil. But yet, no one seems
They're
to
not
really kind
seeing
of
that.
catch on to that because again, it's,
It's
it's
interesting.
a sad, unfortunate thing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting when you go through Facebook and Instagram and you see these posts and then you read the comments and, I'll even comment and say, all you've done is moved it from Zillow to Compass. Same exact thing, just a different company now, but you are a fan of what's happening because it's at your company because you think you're benefiting from it. Meanwhile, it's the exact same thing we were paying Zillow to do. And we kept saying to people, I would argue with everybody, oh my God, you're feeding the monster. They're now a brokerage. Does nobody understand this? And by the way, no one is saying that again right now. No, all of a sudden, Zillow being a brokerage isn't even being mentioned anywhere.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you've got one brokerage trying to put another brokerage publicly out of business. So that instead of you buying leads or buying whatever you're going to buy with Zillow, you're just going to go join Compass. So you're with the same animal. You're feeding the same animal through your commissions.
So I'll give you an even darker scenario if you really want to go down this path.
Okay, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
boy.
Imagine now you have a brokerage. That brokerage has 40, 50% market share nationally. That brokerage has built their own MLS, and you can have access to it if you pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be at another brokerage, but if you want to see that data, you as an agent have to pay for it. Cool. And if you're inside of that brokerage and you're part of that brokerage then can begin to start to reduce your commission, your splits, right? Because let's say, remember, you get
Right.
90-10 at one point in time. Well, next year it's 85-15. Eventually you get down to 70-30. And when you say, well, this is outrageous, I'm going to go to the Johnson brokerage across the street, they're going to go, okay, good luck telling your clients that, by the way, their property is now not visible by half the country.
Exactly right.
Where are
Right.
you going to go? What are you going to
Right.
do? Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. And that's literally, that is the path and plan that is currently being mapped out. And I want to be unbelievably clear about this. I did not use a brokerage name.
You did not.
I am simply saying, because it's not one, there
Right.
are several that are
Right.
in this path.
Absolutely,
Sorry.
there are. There are.
And
And it
that
is
is the
true that
purposeful plan.
yeah, and it's actually pretty scary because you're feeling forced to have to join in order to at least compete versus doing, what we all did for the past 25, 30, 40, 50 years was, we had the Zillows and the Trulias and the Realtor.com, but you also had to have your own business. But now by controlling this, and that's why it was like, how did the DOJ let us get to this point? But they did. And so now we just have to wait and see. So in a closing statement, what would you want to say to everyone out there that's listening?
God bless you all. No, here's what I'll say in the closing statement. At the end of the day, all of this is good to know. Knowledge and information like this is incredibly
Power.
important. You need to know what's happening, right? Don't focus on it though, right?
Right.
Be aware, but focus back on your business. Focus back on, this is what I tell all my coaching clients that I work with. Right now, the single most important thing that you can do is understand that you control way more than you think you do. You have way more power and control because over all these years, you've developed meaningful, powerful relationships with the people that matter most. And most of what comes out of these brokerages and all these things become a distraction, right? And so what I try to have them focus on is remember who the people are that love you, care about you, love your business, are here to support you, and that are what I would really call your true sphere, right? You 6,000 people in a database. Well, that's a sales tool. We're not in sales, right?
Right.
Find the 50. Find the top 100 people. I'm not talking about the referrers. I'm not talking about the people that are going to be, I've done 3 deals with. No, I'm talking about the people from a basic human element. You could pick up and have a conversation with and talk about the fact that my wife just made me sleep on the couch last night, and they would have a whole empathetic conversation. She didn't. That was the night before. But anyway, but I'm just kidding. The main thing there is that's what you want to focus on, Caryn.
Right. Right.
You want to focus on those people, nurturing those relationships, developing the health of those relationships, and supporting them as well. That's what's going to drive your business more than anything else out there. And that is the thing that is left. TurboTax didn't eliminate accountants. It just eliminated crappy ones.
Right.
Right? No one's getting rid of agents. All this stuff that's going on though, right? Focus on being the best of what you are and who you are and what you do. And really focus consumer centric. If you can stay consumer centric, they'll always tell you what to do with your business in order to keep the business moving well.
Well, thanks. And I really do agree with that. I think we all have to just focus forward and focus on our business and be better than we were yesterday, always. Can you share your contact information? So for people out there that really want to up their game and they really are looking for, I think there's always a way for people to really let's catapult them somewhere. And especially with today, with what's going on, helping them be a better agent. So if you could share your number and even website that people can go to.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. And the best way people can reach me, if you go to lancependleton.com, LancePendleton.com, you can, that's the easiest way to find me. My number, my info, all the programs that I run, all the things that I do are all on there. So that's always the best way to find me. And then you can also find me on Instagram, Pendleton on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next time on B&B Luxury Properties, Champagne and Closings. Hey, everyone. I'm Caryn Black with B&B Luxury Properties. I want to say thank you, Champagne and Closings. Until next time, don't forget, follow us, like us, and cheers.